We learned early on that space was silence. A cold and different void, where stars were born and died without witnesses. We grew up looking at the sky believing we were explorers, pioneers of a vastness without an owner. Science reinforced that idea for centuries. The universe was too large, too old, to care about us. We were wrong. The mission was named Arca VII, not for religious symbolism, but for practicality. It was humanity's seventh attempt to cross the limits of mapped space, going beyond what astronomers called the dead zone, a region where sensors detected no significant stellar activity, no signs of life, no electromagnetic noise. A cosmic graveyard. Or so we believed. The crew was small, chosen not only for competence, but for psychological resilience. 6 people. 6 minds trained to endure isolation, total communication failure, and the very real possibility of never returning. I was the mission's record officer, responsible for documenting every detail, not for the public, but for history, in case someone one day found our data drifting through the void. When we crossed the final boundary of the star map, something changed. It wasn't immediate. No alarm sounded. No lights flickered. It was a diffuse sensation, difficult to translate into technical language. As if space itself, once passive, had acquired depth. The stars seemed farther away, and at the same time, more attentive. The silence, which had always accompanied us, became heavy. 3 days later, we detected the planet. It did not orbit any visible star. It should not have existed. A massive, stable body suspended in absolute darkness, reflecting a light that came from nowhere. The sensors went wild trying to classify it. The gravity was too precise. The composition, impossible. It was not a natural planet. Nor was it a station. It was something in between. The decision to land was not unanimous. It never is. But space exploration does not reward excessive caution. We adjusted our trajectory and descended through the atmosphere, if that could even be called an atmosphere. There were no clouds, no detectable winds, but there was resistance. As if we were passing through a layer of intention. The ground was black, smooth, almost polished. No natural relief. No erosion. The landscape looked sculpted, not formed. Giant towers rose in the distance, silent, geometric, perfectly aligned, as if obeying a logic that predated human geometry itself. There was no visible life. No sound. No movement. And yet, all of us felt the same thing the moment we stepped outside the ship. We were not alone. We explored the structures for hours, perhaps days. Time there felt imprecise. The towers had no visible entrances, but they responded to our presence. Surfaces lit up as we approached, revealing symbols none of us recognized, yet which strangely felt familiar. Not like a forgotten language, but like an idea that had always lingered at the edge of human thought. That was when we found the first record. It was not an archive in the conventional sense. It was a vast underground chamber where even the air seemed to vibrate. At the center, a colossal structure projected images directly into our minds. We did not see aliens. We did not see creatures. We saw history. Entire civilizations rising among the stars. Expanding. Exploring. Colonizing. Growing confident that the universe belonged to them. And then, disappearing. Always in the same way. Not through external war. Not through natural catastrophe. But through something that came after total expansion. As if the universe had an invisible boundary. And those who crossed it were erased. In that moment, we understood the most disturbing truth of all. The planet was not an abandoned world. It was a marker. A warning left by something too ancient to be called a civilization. Something that did not conquer. Did not destroy. It merely observed cycles and ended those that went too far. And by landing there, humanity had done exactly that. After the revelation, nothing was simple anymore. We tried to shut down structure that had projected those images into our minds, but we quickly realized there was no path. It did not function like a machine. It functioned like a trigger. Als activated, the information had already been transmitted. Not to our dish, but to us. As a crew member reacted differently. The commander waited in absolute silence, as if discipline could shield her from the meaning of what we had seen. The engineer began calculating everything compulsively, as if numbers could still impose order on the impossible. The medic tried without noticing, the ash sliding inside her helmet as he repeated that none of it made biological sense. He only observed. He observed the towers. He observed the black, startled sky. He observed the growing sensation that the planet was not merely a warning from the past, but an active node of a mesologist system. Something still operating. That was when sensors truly began to fail. Not through violent malfunctions, but through resignation. Incoherent readings. Data cancelling itself out. Ship's clocks display at different times depending on the model. The concept of duration dissolved. W slept, woke, explored, but no longer knew how much time had actually passed. Then the planet responded. One of the towers, the closest one, began to move. It did not shift physically. It reorganized its form surface folder, lens adjusted, as if the structure were calculating its omniscience to accommodate our presence. Symbols repeated, clearer now, pulsing in FHILMTHIMS that matched our heartbeats. It was not direct communication. It was calibration. W understood this when the ground banners opened, revealing the smooth descent, almost respectful, into the planet's interior. No explicit threat. No warning of danger. Just an invitation impossible to ignore. The commander is adapted. For the first time since he had known her, he saw real fear in her eyes. Not fear of death, but fear of the answer. The cause descending meant accepting that the universe was not neutral. That something was evil within. W descended anyway. The interior did not resemble a cave, nor a base. It was a vast space, with structures suspended in emptiness, connected by invisible energy fields. At its center, a colossal sphere rotated slowly, composed of translucent layers, each displaying different patterns. As W approached it, W understood what it was. Not a database. An archive of species. Thousands. Perhaps millions. Each layer contained a complete record of a civilization, its origin, its expansion, its critical source. There was no explicit moral judgment. Only a recurring pattern. When a species reached the capability to cross regions beyond its natural space, it was marked. Observed. And, at a certain point, interrupted. It is not uttered, the medic whispered, almost in prayer. It is contained. The word hung in the air. The universe did not eliminate out of cruelty. It eliminated for balance. Like an ecosystem removing an invasive species before it could become dominant. Then came the part that broke us from within. Sphere projected a new set of data. Not from the past, from the present. Humanity. Our history unfolded there in real time. Our initial expansion. Our culmination. Our first steps beyond command zones. And at the top of the projection, an active marker. Steps, under advanced observation. We were not special. We were not fast. And W would not be the exception. The commander attempted to transmit information back to Earth. No signal left. No wave returned. There was no interference. There was indifference. As if the planet simply did not consider external communication relevant. That was when W realized the cruelest truth. W had not been invited to what yet. W had been brought to understand. The cow's understanding was the last thing every other species had also done, shortly before disappearing. And as W watched our own extinction projected as a statistical possibility, something changed within the sphere. A new symbol appeared. Different from the others. Stable. A variable. Something that did not exist in previous records. As the human presence there was not only being analyzed. It was being tested. And for the first time since W left Earth, he felt that the greatest danger was not what the universe would it was. That what we world to weed this knowledge. There was no alarm announcing what came next. The planet did not operate with warnings. The central sphere began to slow its rotation, as if it had reached a conclusion. The translucid layers aligned, forming a single coherent pattern. The entire environment responded, suspended structures vibrated, energy fields adjusted, and the silence, once merely heavy, became absolute. That was when we understood the test had entered its final phase. No verbal sentence was delivered. No voice echoed. No entity revealed itself. Judgment was not carried out through words, but through consequences. The sphere projected multiple possible futures for humanity, branching timelines shaped by our choices. Aggressive colonization. Accelerated expansion. Unchecked technological dominance. And nearly every path, the same outcome. Collapse. Not as direct punishment, but as extrapolation. Like a flame growing beyond the available oxygen. But there were exceptions. Few. Fragile. Paths in which humanity restrained its own expansion, learned to coexist with limits, accepted that the universe was not territory to be conquered, but balance to be respected. These futures did not display imperial grandeur. They did not show domination. They showed survival. The commander finally spoke. "So, what are we to them?" she asked, her voice dry. The answer came not as sound, but as certainty. A species too young to be trusted with unlimited power. Dangerous not by malice, but by unrestrained ambition. The planet was not an executioner. It was a filter. And we had arrived too early. The sphere then presented the final choice, not in words, but in action. The ship Arca VII was released. All systems came back online. Sensors, clocks, and thermal communications. The planet was returning something it had taken since our arrival, autonomy. We could leave. But leaving did not mean escaping. It meant deciding. If we returned to Earth with that knowledge, the impact would be immediate. Governments would react with fear or arrogance. Some would attempt to accelerate expansion even further, challenging the limit imposed by the universe. Others would try to bury the truth. In both cases, the unstable variable, us, would become even more dangerous. The medic spoke softly what no one wanted to admit. Maybe we are not the ones who should decide humanity's future. The silence that followed was heavier than any answer. I then understood the true test. It was not about technology. It was not about spacefaring capability. It was about voluntary restraint. About knowing when not to advance. When we returned to the ship, the sphere did not stop us. The towers remained motionless. The planet did not try to hold us. It simply observed. As it had observed countless species before us. Before leaving, I looked one last time at that impossible world. I felt no hatred. No fear. I felt something worse. Responsibility. To transmit or not to transmit. To accelerate or to restrain. To ignore the warning, or accept it. As Arca VII drifted away from that point beyond the map, I understood the final irony. The universe had not decided whether humanity would live or die. That decision was still ours. But now, for the first time, we knew we were not alone in the silence of the stars. And that someone, or something, would continue watching. Not to destroy us, but to see whether we were capable of surviving, without crossing the limit again.